am Dani Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of Penn Voice. I am joined by my good friend Mitch Postel, president of the San Mateo County Historical Association. Mitch, welcome.
Hi, Dani.
I always love having you on the show because you always tell me about some creature or something that you have in the back rooms of the museum that you're now going to be building a display around. But before we sort of talk about some of the things that you have in the back office that you're building some of the exhibits on, tell us a little bit about the Historical Association.
Well, most people know the San Mateo County Historical Association for our museum, San Mateo County History Museum and the old courthouse in Redwood City. And then we have two historic sites, the Woodside Store at Tripp Road and Kings Mountain in Woodside, and the Sanchez Adobe at 1000 Lindemar in Pacifica. But
then within these physical plants, you have mountains of programs that you offer, not only to school children, but adults, and you partner with lots of different nonprofit organizations to bring back a lot of our rich history. So tell us a little bit about some of the programming that you do.
Well, we try to stay as best we can in touch with the community that's all around us. Recently we had a Day of the Dead celebration, which we organized with some of the leader groups there in Redwood City, and we had, in a 4-hour period, I believe we had something like 3,700 people come through the museum. They saw the altars for the different families and that kind of thing, and it was a marvelous occasion. And we do that with a lot of groups.
So some of the things that the community might not know about is some of your exhibits are stationary. Courtroom A is always going to be Courtroom A. Most of us know it as the Mrs. Doubtfire courtroom, but to other judges, they might like Sandra Day O'Connor. She may think of Courtroom A in a very different fashion. But you have some exhibits that do in fact stay and they're stationary, and then you have some areas that you rotate exhibits through, either by culture, by design, or by timing.
Right. So the next temporary display that we're going to be having, and it's going to go on display on January 23rd and then go through the spring, is called Noah's Ark. And there was a very famous restaurant that existed in San Mateo during the 1920s and 30s that was operated by an African-American entrepreneur named Noah Williams. And at the time, that was probably the most successful and well-known of all the peninsula restaurants. People from San Francisco would just come down in droves to experience Noah's restaurant. And we'll be having much of the decor that was part of the restaurant will be on display. He had these gigantic murals of African animals that were part of what you'd see when you'd come into the restaurant. And we have all of those. And so people will be able to see those and photographs and other kinds of memorabilia of Noah's Ark.
So you sometimes are the recipient of people who leave artifacts and leave certain pieces of memorabilia to the History Association. You then have a board of directors that raises money for the Historical Association. How do you determine what you might build and exhibit around, or proactively you want to seek out something about maybe the tech industry, and now you want to build this historical progression of how our community came about in evolution with the tech industry?
Sure. You know, one of the things we do is we look for big anniversaries. For example, we just have experienced the 75th anniversary of the initiation of World War II, America's entry into World War II. And our peninsula had a big part to play during the war in industry, training of the troops, etc. And we felt that it was be a good time for us to do a retrospect about San Mateo County during the war, and that has proven to be a very popular display.
So you always look for what the connection for not only what's happening globally, nationally, but what that local community connection is. Right. One of my favorite exhibits is obviously the baseball exhibit, but then you've done things with waste management. You've done things on historical buildings. Obviously, that makes a great amount of sense. But you know, how do you then put all of this together for something that you know your community is going to want to come and visit and see?
Well, first we look at our own collections. Now, in the case of Noah's Ark, way back in 1972, our executive director, a man named Les Merrill, had the kind of the sense to know that one day this is going to make a great display.
Right.
And it took from 1972 until now for us to get to it.
Right.
But we felt we really wanted to get these things on display for the first time.
Well, and that brings me to my opening comment. My little friend that's sitting in the back of one of your areas within the museum, ready to build a place for him. So tell us a little bit about our mystery guest.
Oh, you're talking about Paleoparadoxia?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we have a critter that existed where the Stanford Linear Accelerator is today, about 12 million years ago. And he was sort of a mix between an elephant seal and a hippopotamus kind of a creature, very rare. And he was unearthed, and the wife of the director of the Linear Accelerator insisted upon its preservation, and she began to put it all together. And through a lot of different kinds of situations, finally, this big cast has come to us, and we're looking to, in the next few years, put together some bucks to create a natural history gallery that will build around him, and but he will be the centerpiece.
Well, and I hope he does, because he's one of my favorite creatures to visit. But which brings us to a great conversation. So you have great ideas to build these different exhibits and to even expand. You were lucky enough to come across Lathrop House on the San Mateo County campus. Now we need to move Lathrop House to perhaps a more suitable location next to Courthouse Square. So tell us, how do you raise money and how can people get involved in helping you further a lot of San Mateo County's rich history?
Well, we do a lot of fundraising among local leaders of the community. And in this particular case, people in Redwood City really had an interest in seeing Lathrop House get moved and then doing something exciting within it. And so this particular idea is to create a Redwood City history gallery up on that second floor that can focus in on a lot of collections among individuals throughout Redwood City that have never been seen before. Right. And there's lots of private collectors in San Mateo County that have just amazing things to show. And so that's one of the themes that we do work on, is to try to get their stuff before the public.
And so sometimes they can lend their items to you.
Exactly. So for the length of the display, let's say it's 3 months, then we take responsibility for protecting those things, but it also gives the public an opportunity to see them, and it's a pretty rare opportunity usually.
And I love the way you honor history makers through your History Makers event. I know that's one of your largest fundraisers. Tad Taube just being recent, Willie Mays, Bill Fogarty, Dr. Fogarty. I mean, there's a lot of folks that you've honored in the past for making great strides in preserving our rich history in San Mateo County. Oh,
thank you. Next up is John Miller, the famous announcer for the San Francisco Giants, Hall of Fame announcer.
Well deserved. Is that a new announcement? I hadn't heard that before. That's awesome.
That's pretty new. It's he got his start with KCSM.
I didn't know that.
And then today he still lives on the coast side, so we claim him as a real San Mateo County personality.
As you should. Coast side is part of our community. So we just have about a minute left. So you talked early about World War II and that new exhibit. We talked about how we can raise money to help fund, but are there some other volunteer opportunities that you can tell us about? Oh yes, we really would. We really are in the market, so to speak, for getting more docents. Okay.
And those are individuals that'll volunteer to help lead tours at the museum for the kids, help us out at Sanchez and Adobe and Woodside Store during the weekends to keep those open to the public, all kinds of chores.
So just to give you our viewers a magnitude of when you say the children that come to visit, I heard it at one of the History Makers, the data on how many numbers of kids in schools that you reach on an annual basis.
Right. Well, it's an amazing 20,000 children and their chaperones come through the three during a year, and that is a whale of a lot of kids.
So that really speaks to the volumes of how many volunteers you do need when you're bringing numbers of kids.
Amen.
Yeah, and I should say that the History Museum in Redwood City is also available for private parties, should they. It's one of the ways in which you raise some revenue for the History Museum as well. Well, Mitch, thank you so much. It's always great to find out about new exhibits and displays that are coming, and I'm really looking forward to your next one. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see all of you next time on Penn Voice.
Bye.